What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Kickash Podcast. We are back here today, finally back. It feels like it's been forever. Super happy to be back. But we're back here today to discuss a topic and something that we, as wrestling fans, and maybe even a lot of lapsed fans and members of the media, a good mixture of folks probably out there, have been waiting on for quite some time. And that is the official release date and some news on the Vince McMahon documentary or movie or docuseries that Netflix was producing and working on. It was originally slated to be released back in 2020, I believe. But of course, with the pandemic and things happening and transpiring, it get pushed back a little bit, and we finally have a release date. Netflix released some information actually not too long ago. I was planning on sitting down here recording some stuff for AEW, but this broke, and I wanted to just talk about this first because I think it's pretty fascinating, and I'm very, very intrigued. So we're going to get right into that. Not going to waste much time, but as always, thank you so much for checking out the show. If you're watching here on YouTube, you can feel free to subscribe, like, comment, whatever you feel like doing, or none of the above. I'm not really that pressed. I appreciate you just checking out the show. But you can also stream the audio version through Apple, Spotify, all that good stuff. You can follow me on Twitter at kickashpodcast_, and you can also check me out on Brass Ring Media as well here on YouTube. I have been over there for the past 2 weeks already, which is crazy. Every Saturday morning, airing live 10 a.m. Eastern here on the West Coast time frame, or I'm sorry, East Coast time frame. I was thinking about the West Coast, but yeah, you can check me out there at Brass Ring Media on their YouTube page, like I was saying. Streaming there live 10 a.m. Eastern time frame. And you can obviously go back and watch later on, whatever suits your fancy, right? But yeah, it's been very fun. I love the live format, surprisingly. So I may introduce that here on the Kick-Ash podcast in the near future. But yeah, I'm still getting used to that. As you guys know, not really that well suited with all this stuff, and I'm just kind of learning from as we go here. So all that fun stuff out of the way, I want to get right into the Netflix portion and their release, what they first released on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. And then there's a couple articles already that have been announced, or I'm sorry, not announced, but that have been written up already, which was crazy. Shout out to all the journalists out there who are covering and just are so quick with updates and releasing information. It's amazing. And I always just am pretty impressed with how, like, for instance, a tweet will go out and within 30 minutes there's like 15 articles already out there. So shout out to you guys. But I'm looking for, where did it go? I had another, there it is. Okay, I lost one of my windows here. But I want to share the screen here with you guys and have you kind of follow along with me. And forgive me, the allergies have been just kicking my tail lately. So I've been fighting it off. Not that coffee really helps that, but if I just sound not great, that's why. But as I was saying, I want to share the tweet here from Netflix, and it's a really fucking great graphic. And that's most likely gonna be the thumbnail here. So it's really cool. I want to show you guys. Bring it up here, and then we'll obviously read what Netflix has to say, and then read a couple of articles that have come out, like I stated as well. Just covering it and just kind of going over some information here and just talking about what to expect. Like, I think it's going to be very controversial, to say the least, in a lot of different ways. So give me 1 second here to get it pulled up. Dun, dun, dun. All right. So starting with Netflix tweet. Here we go, guys. It is. I was gonna see if I can pull a tweet up there's any easier way, but first of all, look at the graphic. I think the graphic is pretty sick. So shout out to them for that. I mean, not that it's anything crazy, but I thought it was a really good and grabbing visual. I love the red. I love what red symbolizes, and how it kind of contrasts against the yellow, and it's kind of interesting, the red and yellow. A lot can be read into there, to say the least. But just going off of Netflix's tweet, they say Mr. McMahon, a documentary series chronicling the rise and fall of the WWE's controversial founder, is coming to Netflix on September 25th. From Chris Smith, executive producer of Tiger King, and Bill Simmons, including interviews with McMahon prior to his resignation, his family, and some of the most iconic names in wrestling history, as well as the journalists who uncovered McMahon's allegations. So I think this second portion right here is actually really intriguing as well. Right here confirms, including interviews with McMahon prior to his resignation. So just stopping right there, that to me is really interesting, and you had me like you had me right there. I hope they're gonna drop them all six. We'll get to that. All episodes at once. Because I know this is gonna be something I'm gonna binge watch. But the fact that they got an interview or interviews with McMahon himself, with Vince himself, I think that's big, and that's truly fascinating, because for the longest time Vince didn't do interviews at all. And then how many years ago was it now? Maybe 2 years ago or so. He did that interview with Pat McAfee, at Pat McAfee's show. I believe it was maybe close to an hour or so. And that was interesting. Of course, that was kind of, I don't know if, I honestly can't recall if that was before all the allegations really got heated, and things escalated quite quickly. And obviously, it was before he resigned. But other than that, you really don't hear from Vince much. You really don't hear him doing any interviews. He's really kind of, I don't want to say quiet and reserved, obviously, but he is the type to just kind of keep stuff related to the business behind the vest. Now, granted, decades ago, he is quite famous for doing certain interviews. With Bob Costas, I think his name was, that famous one where they got into that little tiff, what we'll call. And I believe he did an interview with Howard Stern, I think it was at one point. But so he's done interviews, but that's decades ago, right? And he'll do media, or he did media calls, in regards to the stocks and things like that, but nothing too in depth in regards to actually being asked questions. Now, what those interviews will entail, I think is going to be very telling. And it's really we're gonna know. First, I think it's going to be really intriguing on the style of interview that he conducted as well. Is it like a sit down where you can see the interviewer and then him, where you see two people, or if it's just how standard documentaries and docuseries are on Netflix, where you maybe have a producer, that you can hear ask a couple questions, kind of far off in the back, and Vince's or whomever it is just sitting right there, and the full screen and attention is on them, which is kind of what I put my money on. But even then, I think it has to be, the questions have to be coming from and asked by a neutral party. Someone who is not employed by WWE, has never been employed by WWE, but is familiar with wrestling and is not just an outsider, excuse me, being paid to just do this. It's just another random job for them. This needs to be someone who is well versed in not everything WWE, but the good majority of it, right? Like, it can't just be someone, oh, I was a fan growing up in the 70s or the 80s. It has to be someone who is well aware of the growth, what happened in the 90s, the early 2000s, even the 2010s, and of course the controversies that we've had. And I don't even like calling them controversies, but the legal issues that he now finds himself facing. So I think that's who they get to ask the questions is one thing. And I may have missed that, so forgive me if that's out there already. But I'm not sure who they have, but that's going to be really interesting as well. Or if it's just a sit down interview style where they're just like, this is where we want to start, kind of like a journey through his life. If this is going to be like a full recap from start to finish, essentially, from when I think he's done interviews, like I said, in the past, where he's mentioned he grew up in like a trailer park, essentially, in North Carolina, I think it was, and the struggles that he had. And there was even some, I don't want to say allegations, but I'll just say some reports that I read out there, because I'm not really sure how to classify it properly, because again, I don't know if it's ever been confirmed or anything like that, but that he had gone through certain abuse and things like that. I'm not sure what are like trigger words for YouTube or whatever, but certain abuse, you know what I mean? And I think that that is going to be telling. And I think if that gets addressed, I think that's going to be, especially if we start off with that, I think that's going to be a real tone setter. Be like, okay, we're not leaving anything out. This is going to be a full look, you know. And even then, I guess you can kind of steer that one way or another if you're trying to portray him to be a good guy or a bad guy. Um, as a human being. I'm not the character, obviously, but I think that will be a big tell in how the whole series is going to go. So again, just if we're looking at the cover itself, it says a Netflix documentary series, Mr. McMahon. So we're going to read a couple articles here, like I said, in a minute, but just reading that title itself kind of gives me an idea like, okay, this is going to be a look at Mr. McMahon, the person, right? And what made him him and who he is now. So yeah, and I think it's really interesting as well that it's coming from the executive producer of Tiger King. I don't know about you guys, but I fucking love Tiger King. It was it was, yes, it had very serious stuff happened, it's not good, but golly, man, like I was on board watching that show when it first came out during, and I'm pretty certain it was during the pandemic, right? So they had me hooked. But I'll get this pulled back up here in 1 second. And then just finishing off again from Netflix's tweet, they again following up from the portion of the paragraph I was reading, interviews with McMahon prior to his resignation, his family, which is going to be really interesting, and again another tone setter to me, and another point of, I don't want to say legitimacy because it's fucking Netflix, and like they're not going to just half-ass something like this or any of their documentaries for that matter. They're going to do their due diligence and their research, right? I think it's going to be really fascinating to see if Linda McMahon herself as well gives any interviews, because we haven't really heard much from her at all in the wrestling world, or seeing her really be related to anything wrestling in quite some time. Of course, she's more on the political side of things now, and that's what she's focusing on, which is fine, like good for her. But just a statement, just it would be very interesting to see if she is brought over and if she is interviewed, and especially since they've added more additions. And another reason why it was delayed is because just more and more things kept being released, and more allegations and just more stuff, for a lack of better word and better term. A lot of things kept coming out. So depending on when they got these interviews from McMahon and the family members, and if Linda is one of them or was one of them, I would love, and again, that's why who asked the questions is a big part, in my opinion. Um, I think it's very important and very intriguing to see, and again, not to know their personal life and how anything that's happened and anything that's been alleged and brought forth, how that has affected their marriage. That's personally none of my business, and I don't really care about that. But just as a whole, just how that affected their business relationship with wrestling. Are they still intertwined? Are they separated? I think at some point it kind of is owed to the public to address that. But then again, in a lot of ways it's not. So it's kind of a tricky subject, but not for nothing, just how she's doing, again, I'm not going to get into politics here. Do I agree with everything that's come out and that she's represented, she being Linda McMahon? Probably not. And no, but at the end of the day, she's still a human being, and I think a lot of what's lost in us as human beings is just the ability to disagree on things. Obviously there's different levels to it, but to keep it kind of short and sweet in that regard, I just feel for her as a human being, and I can't imagine the strife that it's put on their relationship, their family, just how they handle little transactions to big deals, and big things in their lives, so in their lives rather. So I just feel for her, and not for nothing, maybe this would give her an opportunity to speak her piece and give her side of things and have an opportunity to really say what she wants to say. And if she has been holding things on her chest for years at this point, or just wanting to address certain things, but she didn't really have an avenue to do so, then this could be that opportunity. And again, I could be saying all this shit and wasted everyone's time for the past 2 or 3 minutes or whatever, and she could very well not even be included in the documentary. But they mentioned family members, so obviously she's going to be one of them. And of course, I would expect Stephanie and Shane to be included in that as well. Yeah, that's gonna be very interesting. And of course, the iconic names in wrestling history. That's a no-brainer right there. But moving on, just kind of staying on the Netflix side. There's an article on a website called whatsonnetflix.com. So it looks like, and to be honest, I hadn't come across this site prior to discovering and just kind of doing some research here. But I saw this and it looks to be just they cover what's on Netflix, which kind of makes sense, right? But no, just anything new, any new shows and shit coming to the Netflix platform. And the article writer here is Jacob Robinson. You can follow him on Twitter at JRobinsonWON. So shout out to him. And yeah, again, guys, this article, like I was saying earlier, was just dropped earlier today at 12:30 p.m. Eastern time, and now it's little after 2. So shout out to you guys for being so quick and diligent, because I think Netflix dropped their, what time did they post their tweet? At 12:30. And I mean, obviously that's probably, he works for Netflix, so it's probably a correlation. Not that it's important, but again, just props everyone out there doing their thing. I'm gonna bring this here for you guys. One second here. Just changed the tab, so I need to get that put up. All right, cool. All right, so again, the graphic right here, Netflix, all that good stuff. The long-anticipated documentary about the controversial professional wrestling promoter and performer Vince McMahon has finally has a release date. The 6-part docuseries, Mr. McMahon, will be available to stream exclusively on Netflix in September 2024. So obviously later, well, less than a month from now. Mr. McMahon is an upcoming Netflix original docuseries directed by Tiger King executive producer Chris Smith and produced by Library Films in association with Ringer Films. Smith is also an executive producer on this series and is joined by Bill Simmons and Zara Duffy. The irony is not lost on us that mere months before the WWE officially calls Netflix its home, the streaming service is dropping what can only be described as a jaw-dropping documentary about its former chairman and CEO. Yeah, I'm sure that's going to be saying the least in that regard. And then he said, a part of the article, what is the Mr. McMahon docuseries about? The, quote, P.T. Barnum of the 20th century. You can make several documentaries on Vince Kennedy McMahon's life and career, as it has been a roller coaster of success and controversy. The former professional wrestling promoter spent most of his career in the industry as the chairman and CEO of his wrestling promotion, the WWE, formerly WWF, and is arguably one of the most successful promoters in sports history. During that time, McMahon was at the center of the rise of in wrestling, or popularity rather, stomping out the competition in the 1980s with Hulk Hogan and Hulkamania. Hulk-E-Mania. and and in the late 1990s with Stone Cold Steve Austin in the Attitude Era. Where McMahon, that's what I get. Where McMahon has made his success, controversy has followed. Steroid scandal, affairs, sexual misconduct, and lots more. The Mr. McMahon docuseries will cover in painstaking detail. Okay, so I mean, play no games here. Netflix has provided a detailed synopsis for the docuseries. Excuse me. Quote, Mr. McMahon chronicles the rise and fall of Vince McMahon, controversial businessman and co-founder of WWE, from his transformation of the WWE from a small regional business into a global entertainment powerhouse to the explosive sexual misconduct allegations that led to his eventual resignation. This 6-episode series offers a deep dive into McMahon's life and his enduring franchise. Culled from over 200 hours of interviews with McMahon himself prior to his resignation, his family members, business associates, and some of the most iconic names in wrestling history, as well as the journalists who uncovered McMahon's allegations. Filmmakers Chris Smith, Tiger King, and executive producer Bill Simmons, 30 for 30, present an unflinching, no-holds-barred look at one of the most enigmatic figures in sports entertainment. And then they show just Vince through the years there. Chris Smith, director and executive producer, had the following to say about the docuseries. So here we go. Quote, the goal behind Mr. McMahon was to pull back the curtain and reveal the true Vince McMahon, obscured beneath the persona he presented to the world. Over the 4 years of production, the story evolved in truly shocking ways, culminating in some extremely harrowing allegations. The final product is a revealing documentary that we believe offers a rich and nuanced portrait of the man and the complex legacy he left behind, end quote. And again, just right here, this may be close to the end, so I'll wrap this up before I give any thoughts. When is Mr. McMahon coming to Netflix? So again, just confirming, Netflix has confirmed that Mr. McMahon will premiere globally on the platform on September 25th, 2024. So not too much longer. And again, we have the pretty sweet artwork that I think in the cover for the show in the docuseries. What is the episode count? We have official confirmation, that there will be 6 episodes with each with an approximate runtime of 60 minutes. So that's a good set of series right there. With the announcement, we have confirmation that the documentary is a series, not a film, as it was last reported in 2023. And then, so that's the end of the article here. And again, just another visual of that. Excuse me. I think it's going to be really, and just kind of actually backing up a bit here. This quote kind of gives me more hope. Just with him starting that they wanted to pull back the curtain and reveal the true Vince McMahon, and then continuing, with the truly shocking. No fucking doubt, right? Truly shocking ways. I'm sure no one could have predicted that. And some extremely harrowing allegations. In this part right here, the final product is a revealing documentary that we believe offers a rich and nuanced portrait of the man and the complex legacy he left behind. I think that right there kind of is actually a beautiful way for him to kind of wrap it all in the bun right there, in a bow, or in a bun. But I think that you could have had a situation where they wanted to just kind of skip things, but now really getting in and digging into who did the interview or who was in charge of doing the interviews, and that they have over 200 hours worth of interviews from Vince, his family members, and people within the industry. I think that's very telling. That's a lot, and of course they had a good amount of time to go over it all, but I really am going to be fascinated to see when the last interview with McMahon himself was done. Obviously, he's not going to give any information in regards to the allegations. First of all, why would he? He's not going to tell Netflix anything that's going on. And his lawyers I would most definitely, they would probably recommend that their client does not talk about anything like that. And of course, if they ask him, he'll probably say no comment, and we can't get mad at that. But if he does say anything, I'd be very shocked. But I don't see that. And again, I don't know if the time frame when he was interviewed and when the allegations came out, when that's going to be, or when that would have transpired, or even if it would have had an opportunity to, right? Like if they could have stopped interviewing him months or even a year prior to everything coming to light. So there's that as well. So they have to keep in mind. I think, and we'll learn more information as the days and the weeks come and go. But I think that is a good look and a good idea of what to expect so far. There is one more article that I want to share here as well, and then we'll wrap up this portion. Dun, 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 dun. But again, it's just one of those things that I didn't really forget about, but it was kind of not on the forefront of my mind. And then when I saw this tweet earlier today, I was like, wow. And the fact that it's so soon. Today is what, the August 29th, so less than a month. Like I said, it's just I'm excited for it, and part of me feels kind of icky for even saying that I'm excited for it, because I know a lot of bullshit and a lot of sensitive and most likely graphic information is going to come out, again, depending on how deep they get into the most recent things. But it's his life and the wrestling as a whole, and especially with the amount of time that they got and the people who it sounds like they interviewed. So sounds like they definitely did their part there, and that's what I was most hopeful for. But again, this article here is from Variety.com. Again, the shot of Vince there, and him just being the puppet master, I think is quite telling as well, that they went with that kind of imagery. But again, their article goes to state the Netflix docuseries on former WWE boss Vince McMahon has set its premiere, so a lot of this is going to be what we just read, but just to kind of cover it here. The series titled Mr. McMahon will debut on September 25th. It consists of 6 one-hour episodes. The official synopsis for this series states, let me see. Yeah, this is the same thing, so I'm not going to read that over. I thought there was a little bit more. Yeah, so the docuseries was originally announced back in October 2020. Less than 2 years later, McMahon announced his retirement from WWE amid an investigation into misconduct allegations by the WWE board of directors. He made a stunning return to the company in early 2023 to negotiate its sale, which eventually happened when Endeavor bought WWE and merged it with UFC under the TKO Group banner. McMahon then resigned from the TKO board of directors after a former employee filed a lawsuit against McMahon, accusing him of sexual abuse and trafficking her to other men. Yeah. It's still just stunning to me in a lot of ways every time I read that, and then I know it shouldn't be in many other ways, but it's just still one of those things, man. You kind of you don't expect the best, but like you damn sure don't anticipate shit like that coming out. Quote, the goal behind Mr. McMahon was to pull back the curtain and reveal the true Vince McMahon obscured beneath the persona he presented to the world, said, unquote, said series director and executive producer Chris Smith. Okay, and then it continues on with the other portion that we read. Over the 4 years of production, the story evolved in truly shocking ways, culminating in some extremely harrowing allegations. The final product is a revealing documentary that we believe offers a rich and nuanced portrait of the man and the complex legacy he left behind, end quote. And then along with Smith, Bill Simmons and Zara Duffy serve as executive producers on Mr. McMahon. The series is produced by Library Films in association with Ringer Films. I believe that is it for this one as well. Yeah. So, again, guys, that's just a quick look at all the information that we have so far. I'm going to do a quick refresh here just to make sure. But again, I was originally planning on sitting down and going over some AEW stuff, which I'm still going to do here in a minute. After I get this all bundled up here, but I was just very surprised, and I wanted to touch on this first, that we finally got more information on what to expect with this Mr. McMahon, what we thought could be a documentary, maybe a movie, but now that we know is confirmed a docu-series, a 6-part at that 1-hour episodes each, which again, that's great, because sometimes they could vary. They could be 30 minutes, 45 minutes, but I love that we're getting 6 hours of it. So you know where I'll be September 25th, at least for 6 hours or so, especially if they drop them all on the same day, which they, like I said, normally do, but sometimes I saw that they string some out, which I wish they would have addressed there. Maybe that'll be some more of the information we'll get later on. But I do want to know what you guys think about the documentary. And you can let me know here on YouTube in the comments or on Twitter at @kickashpodcast_ or at me, my personal page at ASHMANNS. But I really am looking forward, like I said, to the documentary itself, on the docu-series, but I'm kind of, I don't want to say nervous for WWE because, how could he feel so much for $1 billion company? But I think that with all the momentum that they've had, they gotta own up to some shit, I think that you can't just keep glossing over questions that are being asked to you when you're at certain media scrums anymore, especially when the platform that you're moving to is the platform that's releasing this docu-series on the former face of the company, regardless of what you had to say, or regardless if you know or like or not know, regardless if you liked wrestling, you knew who Vince McMahon was. He's the owner. So with that being said, I think that it's a good call, obviously, and great that he's already been resigned and kind of separated from the company, has no ties anymore. But yeah, this is going to be an interesting time frame for WWE in the next couple months. But with that being said, thank you guys so much for checking out the show. I truly appreciate it, and we most definitely will be doing a recap on those series, on those episodes rather, when they come out in September. So be on the lookout for that. But we'll definitely be dropping more content prior to then. But yeah, thank you guys so much for checking out the show. And as always, feel free to follow me on Twitter. But until next time, guys, stay safe and have a wonderful day.